Hi everyone, Tony here from the Light Academy. Today I'm going to take you through some tabletop photography. Now, if you haven't got any studio flash or even a speedlight for your camera, we're going to look at actually using your mobile phone and just the torch on there. Now, I know it sounds a bit crazy, but it's a challenge, and I've gone for some inspiration from Robert Mapplethorpe and his flowers here. So this is the finished result. It's printed onto some Permajet FB Distinction paper. It's a gorgeous paper with some lovely deep blacks for printing. I've got to say thank you to Clifford for reminding me to do this. I was going to get around to doing this, but not with a mobile phone, but there we go. I will show you the original image before post-production, and then I'll take you through post-production right at the end to show you how I came up with this result. So let's go. So a couple of Vileda mops, my black coat, and a bottle of Prosecco, and you're in Mapplethorpe country. By the way, other alternative mops are available. Although I have stacks of lighting stands, I've kept the set as basic view as a home could allow. You can see that this was just set up loosely on the dining table. Nothing over the top. It actually looks a bit of a mess, but remember what the results are like. You can use any black material. The main thing is to keep the background far enough away from the light and behind the flower. So I shot the actual image lower than this. Use as a starting point a low ISO for quality, 200 here. f8 to f16 for more depth of focus with the aperture, and the shutter speed of around 1 to 4 seconds depending on the power of the light from your phone. I dropped the window blinds down to reduce the ambient light to minimum and allow for the phone to provide the main light source. Move the phone in close and position so the shadows are where you want them to be. Set the camera on a 2-second timer and shoot holding the phone over the flower. Here's the actual shot straight out of camera. So let's go into Adobe Camera Raw and I'll show you what I did. So here we are with the original image in Adobe Camera Raw. There's the Adobe Camera Raw default straight from camera. So first of all, let's change it to black and white. We'll now give it some base adjustment, looking at the highlights and contrast. And the exposure looks pretty good there. Just going to bring those highlights down a little. And I think for this shot, as it's a Mapplethorpe style, I'll add some extra contrast in there. Now, to get the background black, let me just show you how easy that can be. We'll go over to the adjustment brush, which is K on the keyboard. And first of all, I just want to make sure the blacks around here are as black as they should be. So taking down the blacks and the shadows as well, making sure that we've got 100% density, and I usually work on around about 25% flow with a full feather, and I use the bracket keys to adjust the sizes of the brush. So I'm just going to remove around the black area here, just surrounding the edges of the flower. And you can see why it's important to have that flower in front of the black background now. So working fairly quick, just a few strokes around there, and that looks pretty good. Now also with a new brush, I'm just going to bring in some negative exposure and just start painting around the outside now. You can see I work pretty quickly with a feather brush and just keep away from the flower. Pull that exposure down a little bit more, and with a new brush I'm going to go over the top again, just a bit bigger this time with the brush. So it's starting to come together lovely around the edges there with the blacks. Bring that brush down a little bit up here, pulling that exposure right back on that. And another new brush. Go over these areas here, and this should be the last brush for these last few areas. Yeah, that's good. So you'll always end up with a few highlights on these brighter areas. The easy way to remove these is to go up to the spot removal tool and make sure it's on clone. Now with this large area here, because we're working just with pure black, we can go with a larger brush size for the clone. And one click with the large brush may just do it. And if it picks up in the flower, then we can just move it into the black. Moving it into the black, and that's gone. So let's take a look at that. Good, that's the background fixed. Now all that's left to do is the regular dodging and burning if you think it needs it on the flower itself. So let's have a quick look at that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this for here, but let's go over to the adjustment brush again. Make sure you're on a new brush. Reset the sliders by clicking on the mark next to the exposure. And we're going to go with some burning first of all. The light's coming from the top, so let's just work on some of these areas. Now add a new brush. Just tone down the stalk and these few leaves. And with a new brush again, let's look at the highlights. Just lighting that up a little bit. Just looking around here, that looks a little bit bright, so we'll come back to that. I've got to say, for lighting that's coming from a phone, it's looking extremely good. So let's go back with a new brush. And just tone this down a little bit here. And I'm just going to work on these leaves here. So a new brush. Bring those highlights down and just keep some negative exposure as well. Just see if we can tone that down a little bit more. So I'll leave that at that for the dodging and burning. So you can see just how in Camera Raw, and I should also say the same for Lightroom, what you can exactly do without opening up Photoshop. We've got rid of that background and that's looking good and all black, and it's really now up to you if you want to go ahead and crop it or do anything else within Photoshop. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and also always don't forget just to click done.